Welcome back. You're 4 days post-op from your ACL surgery. The surgeon has given you this brace. And so with this brace, it actually locks you into place through certain degrees of motion. And because you're only 4 days post-op, you're not supposed to go past 30 degrees of flexion. So I have already locked it into place for you, but if for some reason you want to be locked out on the brace, you just lift and rotate the dial from side to side. And it's like that on both sides, so you just move both sides as you're applying it. This brace is going to move a little bit if it's not tight completely. So when you're applying this brace, first off, these pads sit right where the joint line is. So when you're putting it on, you want to find your joint line, which is here for you. And you want to make sure as you're putting it on that the pads sit a little higher up. So the bottom of the pad should be right above the joint line. So that way when you stand and you start walking around, it'll slide into place where it's appropriately supposed to sit. For this brace specifically, when you're putting it on, strap-wise, I'll show you, like it doesn't really matter which order you go in, but you want to make sure that the dials on both sides are at 30 degrees because your doctor doesn't want you going past that. Okay, so go ahead and lift your legs so we can put this brace on for you. And like I said, you want to find the joint line and lift your leg a little bit more. There you go. And you want the pads to sit a little bit above it. And while you're putting this on, I start from the top and go to the bottom, but you want to click it into place and then tighten the straps. So that's way it's tight around your leg. And you just go all the way down through the leg and make it tight. And then when you stand up, if it's not tight enough on the straps, you can always tighten the straps that way too. But like I said, you want the straps to be tight so it's not moving when you're walking around and stuff. And you put this in like this. I'm gonna lift your leg here. And see how as I applied, the pads move down. Mm-hmm. So the pads are sitting right where your joint line is, and that's what you want for this brace. And it's in 30 degrees locked, so you shouldn't move past 30. Okay, so you have sustained a contusion on the outside of your thigh from the previous game that you played in. This is typically not something we want you sitting out for because it's just a simple bruise. It'll go away over time. So what I went ahead and did is I made a protective device for you. This device is made out of orthoplast, and what it is just a really hard plastic that can be molded when it's dipped in hot water. So what I did is I took a bigger chunk and measured around the circumference of your contusion, and I made it a little bit bigger than the contusion size, dipped that plastic into the water, so I was able to mold and make it more pliable to where it'll mold a certain way. So how I did that was when it was still wet and pliable, I molded it in a way that it would suction to your leg. So essentially it's flared inward. And what that's going to do is, one, keep it closer to your leg, suction the area essentially, and two, it helps with shock absorption. So when you wear this and you get hit again, it'll disperse the force instead of constantly hitting that one spot, making the contusion worse. And to make it a little bit more comfortable for you, I also added some foaming on the inside. And what that's going to do is keep the orthoplast one directly off the contusion. Even though it's a little bit bigger, it's not going to touch it, but it's not touching your skin directly, so the rough patches won't scratch you or anything. It's also going inside your football pants, so we don't want any of the rough edges that could have been missed to scratch your pants and then scratch you. So the foam is, one, to make it more comfortable, and two, to also help with the shock absorption. So how this is going to work is you're going to take this and put it in the padded part of your football pants. Now, if for some reason it starts to slip or whatever, we're going to go ahead and predetermine that it might slip. And so what we're going to do is we're going to place it, one, inside the pad, and two, wrap an ACE wrap around it just to keep it in place, because you don't want it slipping and some of the foam hitting the contusion or anything, and you don't want the contusion to get bigger or get worse.